speakers that are going to be part of us. So representing the Ministry of Trade and Industry, we have Munyurangabu Jonas, who's the Director General of Planning and as well as the Acting Chief Technical Officer. This is at the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And then on behalf of the Rwanda Development Board, we have with us Madame Diane Sainzoga. Diane Sainzoga is the head of the Special Economic Zone and Export Facilitation Department at the Rwanda Development Board. So those are the two corrections and updates. Updates, Lillian, I wanted to make regarding our guest panelists from Rwanda representing Rwanda Development Board, as well as the Ministry of Trade and Industry. But of course, from the Ministry of Youth and Culture, we still have the same panelists. So I think if I could just make sure that, yes, I can see them on. And Lillian, if I can ask you, like you said earlier on, this is going to be an interactive session. We have questions lined up for our panelists, all panelists. And there's a series of questions not specifically addressed to each panelist or each institution. They're more or less generic to give all our panelists different ways in which they can answer this question based on their work, based on their backgrounds, based on the work the institutions do. So Lillian, just correct me very quickly if I can kick off the questions, or is there something you wanted to quickly add?
I would actually like you to kick off the questions from your end. So we will give you interacting time about 20 minutes, and then we will head over to Frank, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Thank you very much. So the first question to all our panelists is really to do with the theme of this conversation. And the theme of this conversation, as you can see, it's multi-stakeholder dialogue to address policy hindrances as well as capacity restraints when it comes to youth business leaders. The capacity, the restraints they face when it comes to export of goods and services, as well as just undertaking national and regional cross-border trade in East Africa and Africa as a whole. So the first question to all our guest panelists here, I can see everyone is linked in. So the first question is generally regarding market access. And please let me know if I break out or if I'm not clear. But so far, I think it's so far so good. I can see and hear everyone. So the first question is on market access. Now, if you could share with us what some of your institutions are doing to facilitate youth entrepreneurs in exporting their goods and services to current markets that exist, but also positioning them for markets that will soon be created by the AFCFTA. So regarding market access, what are some of your institutions doing to facilitate youth in exporting their goods and services in this regard? So just by a show of hands or unmuting yourself, please let me know so we can now take the spotlight to the people who will be answering. And I can see we have online with us Diane Sainzoga, Jonas, as well as Tony Otoa.
Thank you. Ben, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Thank you, Jonas.
Yes, this is Jonas from the Ministry of Trade and Industry. I think
is it possible to have your video on so that we can all see you, including the people in Burundi as well as Arusha and different parts of the EAC?
Not sure if I'm trying to do so, but it's telling that Zoom is unable to detect a camera. I don't know if this is something I can address very quickly.
Okay, but carry on. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. I think I wanted to start from the policy perspective before we go into the nitty-gritties of the reality on the ground and what the ministry with other stakeholders are trying to do to make sure that we increase and facilitate the market penetration, but also market access in general for the youth, but also for traders in general. Number one is that we do recognize that cross-border trade and intra-Africa trade is a very important component as far as our trade is concerned, and also our economic development is concerned. That is why we do have with our national strategy for transformation, which is in this sense NST1, consider this as among the priorities, increasing our trade, mainly with export, which is targeted to grow by 17% every year. And to do so, we do understand it's not the government which is going to do, make this target achieved, it's the private sector. So looking at the private sector that we have in Rwanda, of course, with also initiatives and strategies to promote the youth-related businesses, we also have a particular strategy, which is private sector development and youth employment. We are looking at different angles, either from the angle of employment, but also from the angle of business development and private sector growth in general. So with the private sector development, we do believe that job creation will happen if the private sector is able to grow, but also expand. So the growth of the private sector can only come if they are making profit and also if they are making sales. And the sales can only happen or be realized if they do have access to market. The market that provides, the best prices, but also which encourages the suppliers to keep on producing, but also supplying the markets. Therefore, coming to also linking it, the sustainability of this market also are, again, in the backward connected to the supply capacity. So the supply capacity also goes with the whole entrepreneurship mindset of which we would want to develop the ecosystem that supports entrepreneurship in Rwanda. I think, Diana, you might be aware, we are launching a new entrepreneurship policy this Monday to try to provide the whole ecosystem that's required for the private sector, especially for the youth, startups, and also SMEs to grow their business. This ranges from intervention ranges from human capital, from the education, be it the formal but also informal. How do we prepare people for entrepreneurship before even they go into the real business? Number two is the business support, the advisory services that go with that in terms of either market, but also in terms of business plan, and how also you deal with your employment, with your workers, and how you can get out of them, the best out of whatever you are doing. And number three is the access to finance. We do understand that this trade finance, in this sense, you already know that we have a specific fund that finance export-oriented businesses, which is export growth facility, and open for a number of sectors, including businesses by youth, either in the agriculture or in other sectors of exports. Finance is very important, either through the system, but also promoting the alternative source of finance, being the equity funding and any other means throughout. Number four on this is very important, the enabling business. Conducive business that would want to have the laws and regulations that are put in place, are they really facilitating the youth, especially startup and SMEs, to access the market, but also be able to do the operations, things to do with the taxes, things to do with non-tariff barriers throughout different corridors. Are they really facilitating the business to grow and also make profit, and at the end of the day, create jobs for the youth? Number five, it's very, very also important as far as this discussion is concerned. This is market access, but also value chain approach. We are looking at supporting the value chain approach in whatever we are doing. We do understand the connectivity between different businesses. Some may do businesses in a particular segment of the value chain, but how do they connect to each other? Be it the local backward linkages and forward linkages, also the regional global value chain. we could import from one of the countries in EAC and add value, but also export to the rest of the world. And these are the initiatives that are being put together to make sure that they can facilitate
Jonas, thank you very much. I'd like us to just quickly move to anyone else, and I'd really like to challenge our speakers to respond in less than a minute or two, because we want to make this interactive, and we also want to open the floor to some of the participants of this webinar. So please keep it short and precise and succinct and to the point. So just very quickly between Mr. Tony Otoa, Diane, Zoga, in terms of market access that your institutions are providing in enabling youth to access not only current markets, but also markets that will be put in place by the AFCFTA. Very quickly and over to Tony, I'll start with you because I can see you online. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, it's one thing to talk about policy and have all these fussy policies and assume that they're working. That's one thing. And then the other thing is to see how practical or make them practical in terms of operational. I like what Jonas has said, and those are very practical in terms of how they're doing it in Rwanda. In Uganda, I think what's very crucial, and again, I like the fact that Jonas mentioned it, private sector has to lead on this. A lot of the time, what government will do is have all these amazing policies, but have no way of actualizing them. So what we have done through the Stanbic Business Incubator Limited is to go over and beyond to take on companies in terms of taking them on, training them, business development, making them compliant. Compliant in the sense that they can sell their good or product or service to any part of the country, but also any part of the world. See, the idea is to get these businesses from point zero, the briefcase kind of Juakali businesses, to become incredible businesses. We have stories within our incubator of companies that have transcended the local scene and are now working internationally, providing their goods and services on the international scene. But all of this becomes practical if, number one, the companies become compliant. They do business the right way. This idea of businesses doing things the usual way, we've been doing this for 10 years, this is how it goes. That is not right. So again, they have to be compliant. And number two, they have to be able to see things in the different way or the different challenges that society or the world has shown us. What COVID has also taught us we have to is that we have to transform our businesses. We have to reshape our businesses. We have to rethink our businesses. All businesses will never be the same. But it's also important for us to understand that while doing that, we have to come back to the basic of what is my business like as an entity? Is it compliant? Am I subscribing to my taxes, my national social security? Am I doing the right things in terms of the policies that can make my company survive or thrive? The moment you have that, creation of markets becomes easy. In fact, the market comes looking for you. That is our philosophy, and we have done it. We've tested it. It's working. We want to try more in the agriculture space, where we're trying to get your local farmers, your local lady in the village, your local youth in the village, to get them to deliver a product which can go and stand on the shelves in Amsterdam, in London, and they can get great prices for that. And interestingly, they're cutting out the middleman because they're dealing with the end user. That is what we aim for, and we hope that if we work around these challenges that COVID has presented us and modify the way we do business for everyone, we can actually come up with something great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Diane, do you quickly want to weigh in on that regarding market access? I know your specific role is in the special economic zone and understanding how we can facilitate our youth-led businesses, not only in Rwanda, but also across the region to really engage in exporting the products and services continentally and also globally. Very briefly, I'll also remind you to just be brief as possible. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, Diane. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to go through very quickly what we are doing at RDB in terms of supporting youth, specifically when it comes to the connection to the international market. So first of all, RDB mandate is to fast track the economic development through the facilitation of the private sector, and the private sector include mainly the youth entrepreneurs. So that is why we set up a number of programs which target specifically the integration on the new markets. And of course, at the heart of those programs, we have youth. So the first program is about the export development, which is, that is an export development program. And under the program, we are mainly building the capacity of exporters, which means facilitating them to develop export plans. And then we are doing market linkages by connecting those exporters to international market. So this can be through international brokers, this can be through sales missions, this can be through trade fairs, facilitated trade fairs. Yes, even if now we are not having a number of trade fairs because of the global pandemic, but there are some of those exhibitions that are happening online, and it requires facilitation on the side of organizers or on the side of trade promotion organization like RDB. So that is where we are really contributing a lot in terms of preparing, coaching, and facilitating exporters to access international exhibitions. And when it comes to the cost, we are supporting exhibitors up to 50% of the cost of attending those exhibitions. So that is the program number one. And secondly, we also have a supply development program. So that program is mainly looking at the supply side. So we are not only connecting exporters to the market, but we are also looking at the supply side to increase the supply capacity of our exporters. And the program is looking at a sector-specific capacity building. For instance, if you are in, let's say, in the milk processing industry, so we are having some technical specific support we are providing to the sectors to prepare them to be ready for the market, for both local and international market. And under the supply development program, we are also doing backward linkages, where we are identifying the high potential suppliers locally, and then we connect them to the local market. Let's say like we are connecting them with hotels, with other big buyers locally, and of course we are also connecting them with the international market. So in addition to the three programs I talked about, we are now mainly focusing on e-commerce. So that is the third intervention. So when we are, with this global pandemic, the e-commerce is developing fast, and we have to go digital mainly in the business industry. And that's why we are now really promoting the e-commerce, and RDB has a partnership with Alibaba Group, and under that partnership, we have different components or areas of interventions, which include the online trading itself, where we are supporting Rwandan companies, Rwandan entrepreneurs to access Alibaba platforms for both goods as well as services. So as of now, we are having Rwandan coffee being sold online on Alibaba platforms, and we also have tourism packages on one of the Alibaba's platforms. So in addition to the online trading, we are also looking at the capacity building and the education aspects, where now we have trained more than 60 Rwandan entrepreneurs. And those entrepreneurs, they are in e-commerce, in the IT-related sector, technology, innovation. So it's a close-cutting capacity building we are providing, but mainly focusing on technology and e-commerce. And in addition to entrepreneurs-related trainings, we are also looking at undergraduate program. By the way, as of now, we have 40 Rwandans who are undertaking undergraduate program in e-commerce at Alibaba Business School. So that is also something we are providing, a support we are providing to young entrepreneurs so that they upgrade their skills, and specifically targeting the online trading, the e-commerce ecosystem, and everything related to technology. So
Diane,
to be very brief.
Yes, if you could just quickly close because we want to head to Arusha right now. Thank you.
Yes, I was just concluding on SME support services we are providing. So those support services include the support to certification. RDB is providing 50% of the certification cost. So that is something very important, which is supporting or helping young entrepreneurs, SMEs to grow and to comply with the market standards. So thank you so much. Maybe I can give more details during the question answers session. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Tony and Diane and Jonas, thank you very much. Those, it really looks like it's a lot of what your institutions are doing, the mindset that you're putting forward, and really, these are things that we hope come to fruition as soon as possible, even though we've been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. There are more questions lined up, but I'm going to take it over back to Lillian because she has some people that she wants to introduce in terms of asking questions and keeping the conversation going. Lillian, over to you. I hope you're ready.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Diana. I would like to actually call onto the stage Solomon, but as he's coming on board, Frank, we are coming over to your side. You have about 15 minutes. We would like to hear from your contributors. What is the discussion around constraints that youth business leaders face in undertaking national and regional cross-border trade in East Africa? And then we'll bring it back here where Solomon will be leading on the questions. Frank? Yes, Frank, over to you. If you can hear us. If you can hear us, over to you. You have 15 minutes. We would like to hear from your contributors on your end on this discussion around youth business leaders. What are the constraints that youth business leaders face?
Frank. Okay, thank you. I'm going to introduce my guest. Here we have firstly Yusua Kizoro, who is the General Director at the Ministry of Trade, Transport, Industry, and Tourism Program. And we have Jeff Ada Unami, who is the Executive Director of Relief Business and Curator. And just the first question for you. What are the challenges and constraints to cross-border for young entrepreneurs? Maybe I can begin with that. Maybe I use this one.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I should start addressing people in front of me in French. Les défis du commerce transfrontalier. En regard de ces deux, pour question de limite de temps. Déjà, au gouvernement, lui-même, étant partenaire, partie prenante du commerce transfrontalier. La question est, est-ce que le gouvernement aujourd'hui est tourné vers les exportations? Est-ce que le discours public encourage les jeunes à exporter? Malheureusement, la réponse, à mon avis, est non. Pas plus tard que ce matin, j'écoutais à la radio un ministre qui dit ceci. Grosso modo. Il faut d'abord satisfaire la demande locale avant de penser à exporter. Sinon, les prix ont augmenté. Ceux qui prennent l'initiative d'exporter, ils voient que la demande étrangère augmente, que donc les prix augmentent, c'est mauvais, d'après son ministre. Or, il regarde seulement un côté de la demande. Il oublie qu'il y a un côté offre. Ça veut dire que vous, les jeunes exportateurs, vous avez intérêt que les prix augmentent. Et le gouvernement, malheureusement, ne le voit pas de cette manière. Et ça, c'est une grande contrainte. La deuxième, c'est ce que Mme Joy ce matin demandait aux jeunes exploitateurs de tout faire pour les impliquer, pour plaidoyer, pour forcer, en quelque sorte, le gouvernement à appliquer les accords signés. Ce n'est pas évident que les jeunes pris individuellement ont cette capacité de faire cette plaidoyer. J'aime bien le mot dialogue. C'est vrai. Je préfère dialogue que combat. Mais dialoguer, il faut vraiment être organisé. Et je ne vois pas aujourd'hui des structures bien organisées, des jeunes capables d'influencer le gouvernement pour mettre en œuvre des textes signés. Je voudrais bien vous limiter brièvement à ça, sauf que vous devez le dire en anglais aussi.
Donc, vous pouvez continuer, on va peut-être, disons, faire le résumé un peu, parce qu'on n'a pas beaucoup de temps.
Je vais laisser la place à mon collègue.
La même question, si vous pouvez les questions.
Okay, thank you. My name is Luca Pesaro. I'm the DG of Trade, Research Residency, to Transport Kuwait. Ok, par rapport aux questions, je voudrais d'abord m'excuse auprès de mon collègue ici présent, et je voudrais d'abord m'inscrire en cours par rapport à ce qu'il vient de dire, dans la mesure où une décision peut être assignée à notre ministère, dans le ministère du Transport, de l'Industrie et du Tourisme, est d'abord équilibrer la balance commerciale, c'est-à-dire quoi? C'est-à-dire essayer de booster les importations par rapport aux importations. Sur ce, aujourd'hui, nous sommes en train de travailler parce que c'est une émission qui nous ont été assignées et comme vous savez, il n'y a pas de temps. Et les autorités de ce pays, ainsi que les différents ministères, ministres plutôt, ont participé à un voyage dans le cadre de la coopération bilatérale. Et ce voyage a abouti à différents accords où chacun des deux parties a essayé de voir ce qu'il pourrait exporter par rapport à d'autres parties. Donc, comme je vous le disais, au niveau de notre direction générale, ou même au niveau du gouvernement ou de notre ministère, on doit booster les exportations. De deux, il a été dit qu'il faudrait voir dans quelle mesure les jeunes devraient pouvoir s'indiquer pour qu'ils fassent un plaidoyer auprès du gouvernement et ainsi l'obliger à ce qu'on puisse booster les exportations.
Mais je pense qu'on n'a pas beaucoup de temps, et puis on va poser des questions.
Je veux vous dire qu'ici, on a déjà une banque des jeunes et pour pouvoir des idées, des projets, et ces projets aboutiront seulement. Cela dépend de leur projet. qui pourront exporter. Oui, également, ça vient de
dire si vous permettez, monsieur, juste pour gagner un peu de temps. Parce qu'une question très précise, monsieur Pierre avait à parler il a bien dit qu'il y a peut-être un problème de politique générale d'exportation. Et vous êtes le ministère du Commerce. Qu'est-ce qui se passe exactement? Est-ce qu'il y a vraiment cette organisation de l'exportation?
Oui, je voulais vous rassurer. À cet effet, nous sommes en train d'abord d'élaborer une stratégie de mise en œuvre de la politique commerciale pour les axes et l'axe de la promotion et de l'exportation. Et comme je le disais, l'une des missions qui ont été assignées, c'est de pousser l'exportation pour équilibrer la balance commerciale. Oui.
Je reviens juste dans les 3 minutes qui nous restent à faire la peine. Justement, quelles sont les voies de source? Parce que vous avez présenté quelles sont les voies de source? Qu'est-ce qui devrait être fait immédiatement à court, à moyen terme?
Merci. Je veux commencer par les jeunes qui sont devant moi et qui sont vraiment entrepreneurs. Il y a beaucoup de défis qui se posent aujourd'hui, mais c'est faut voir, il faut les défendre. Il faut identifier. Quelqu'un disait ce matin, Mme Joy encore, en anglais, you don't ask for something you don't know. Ça vous de bâtir, de vous informer, de savoir au contenu de cet accord. Ils vont quand même vous toucher. Parce que si vous ne le faites pas, les Rwandais, les Tanzaniens, les Congolais vont demander notre marché de produits importés. Et ça vaut aussi de tout faire pour vendre, pour percer le marché régional. Et il y a des compétences qu'il faut acquérir, et ça, c'est à vous de le faire. Maintenant, je suis content que nos collègues du gouvernement s'expriment en faux, mais la réalité est là. Il ne suffit pas d'avoir des stratégies, il faut les mettre en œuvre. Le discours d'une administration compte. Et c'est ça que je ne voulais pas citer auquel ce matin. Donc, la presse, en général, même, l'éducation publique, où les Burundais, on pense que quelqu'un qui exporte sur les femmes du consommateur burundais, si quelqu'un exploite du poisson en Amérique, on dirait qu'il fait du mal au consommateur burundais. Mais ce n'est pas vrai. Il faudrait quand même comprendre que quand on exporte, il faut les mettre à gérer. Pour répondre à votre question, il faut tout faire pour attirer les instruments étrangers qui peuvent travailler avec longueur pour augmenter leur capacité à exporter tout au moins dans la région. Et nous devons arrêter là.
Cette question, une dernière question à Claude. Justement, quel est le message clé que vous donnez aux jeunes entrepreneurs actuellement qui pensent à l'exportation actuellement pour trouver d'autres solutions pour alors
en un mot, je leur dirais, Karim, peut-être l'information qui manque à leur niveau, on va le rencontrer, nous en avons Karim dans notre ministère.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to summarize for our audience in East Africa who are not speak French, maybe just notice some challenges. It was, for example, the government has a main stakeholder in that sector. Maybe would like to be exportation oriented. And then later they have people to do business in that sector. And Mr. Philosophe just say that the government has the will to support the young people who would like to export a product or services everyone. There was a lot of things to say, but we had to hand over for other people who are interacting in this session. So thank you very much for our contributors. Thank you very much. I think it's time to now to give the floor to my colleague from Arusha. Can I take the floor? Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Thank you very much for that conversation. Probably many of us did not understand. Did not understand. But we trust that the conversation has really been fruitful. So, again, we're having a conversation on how youth-led businesses can thrive in the region. But I thought I would make this practical. How many of us in this room have businesses? Just by the show of hands. How many of us in this room have businesses? Yeah. Okay. Looking at about 15 people. 15 people. And so I thought that we would make this conversation very practical, right? Not so much of the paperwork and all that. Have you, in your different businesses, been supported by your government to grow? By a show of hands, has anyone in this room who earlier on put up their hands that they have businesses, have you in any way had support in your business? Okay, perfect. Have you in any way been taxed, and how are the taxes? Are they small or medium or high? Has this in any way affected your business? That perfect. I'm trying to build up to something, because sometimes when you have a lot of conversations based on policies and paperwork and continental free trade agreements and the East African non-tariff barriers, we're so much buried into the paperwork, and then we lose the real essence of the conversation, right? And so I thought that we would have really serious conversations around this based on our experiences as young people, right? I just read a report by the World Bank and the World Economic Forum that said that Africa largely has micro businesses, which perhaps employs about 5 people on average. Many of the young people have, capital of about, I think they were saying about $200,000 or even $100,000 plus minus. And they said that many of those businesses don't live to see their second birthdays simply because of key critical issues that they raise. And I thought that I would start with that. The first one that the World Bank report highlights is access to credit, access to money. Now, many of you have gone to the banks, again, with a show of hands. How many of you have gone to the banks and your loan request has been denied simply because you don't have, the capacity? I mean, the bank does an evaluation and they say, look, we can't give you money because of your maybe credit background, or because for some reason they just refuse to give you credit, right? By the show of hands. Have you gone to the bank and got money? Okay, where are the business people who were here? Okay, perfect. So, you've got money. You didn't get money. Oh, you went to the bank and they didn't give you money. All right, listen. So I thought that we would start this conversation on a rather personal note, perhaps before we get into the policies and all that. What has been your experience, Ian, as a young entrepreneur in the region? What has been your experience in, first of all, growing your business? Because perhaps before we can talk about exporting our businesses within the region, how are our businesses working? Because we can't give what we don't have. So I thought that we could start from your personal experience as a young entrepreneur in the East African region.
All right. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share with my fellow youth. I would say that probably for me, I used a bit, I don't know if it's a different route. For the past 5-6 years, I've only been focusing on working for an NGO. And as you may know, it's tough. It's tough because there is no, I would say, sustainability, especially when it comes to finances. You always have to look for this fund, next fund, and most of these funds are international, and they always have their own conditions. So if you really want to do something different, you probably have to wait. So you're there in the waiting mode, and always you forget to think about your creativity or your idea. You're always thinking, how am I going to meet the requirement of different funds? But everything has positive and negative. So let me go in the direction of the positive side. That experience has given me an opportunity to create a network of young people who we share passion. And also by doing that through those challenges, we are able to build our capacities in terms of skills. And so it reached a time we decided to start a business. So that background helped us to navigate through a lot of challenges because, first of all, if you start a business, before even talking about finances, it's the team. You have the team that can go with you lows and highs. So because of that background of working with volunteers, we worked with almost 1,000 volunteers. So we picked those who share passion. So that one was ticked. The second thing is about skills. So you go request for fund, but you're not given money, you can't deliver. Do you have the skills? So because of volunteering and working in the NGO, we were able to have the skills necessary for us to do that. So doing that, we are able to easily attract funds because we did not start, as you said. Sometimes it's easy to be taken away with guidelines, like, start with a business plan and all these things. And sometimes they don't work. So we did not think of business plans. We went straight to what is supposed to be done. So before even having business plan, we got like 3 clients, 4 clients, and that's how our business has been going. And it has been growing. And now we already have partners, and we are now thinking of business plan so that we can be able to meet the criteria for more funds. So that has been my experience.
It's interesting. And did you have your business registered from the time that you started? Was your business officially registered as you started?
So I think someone who was talking from Rwanda, or like the guy with glasses, I don't remember his name, he somehow preempted me. If you want to have a business that's sustainable, compliance is number 1. Because that one can kill you in any day. So priority number 1 is compliance, then capacity. Because even if you have capacity to do a business that can grow in Africa, if you don't follow the compliance, then you are doomed. So for us, compliance number 1, then the rest follows.
The reason why I asked Ian to really share his personal story is because you guys put up your hands and you said most of you have businesses. I just wanted you to be honest with us. How many of your businesses are formally registered? Okay, the hands have significantly reduced. They have significantly reduced because, and this is in line with the report I just read, that many of the businesses by young people in Africa are informal businesses, and therefore they are not registered. So you're not paying taxes. You're using an average of about 5 to 10 people. And you're just starting it on your own, and you're thinking, by evading taxes, I can be able to grow my capital and then grow my business, right? But Tony just said that that's not the point. But I thought I'd also go to Lillian, because Lillian, you're a business person, right? So I just wanted you to share your story with us before perhaps you bring in the context and analysis from the rest of the team. What has been your experience as an entrepreneur? Because you raised your hand as a business person.
I think so. What has been my experience? I started the business 6 years back. It is not easy running a business between taxes, I think, and there are some things that are happening within the policy environment. But then I also have the opportunity of working around the space of SME development, and I do see the challenges that young startups are facing, or businesses that have been existing for a while. And it could be anything from taxes around actually hiring, so your NSSF, I'm speaking from Tanzania perspective, so your SDL, your workers' compensation fund, your pay as you earn. There are some things that are happening along that lens, but then as you said, it's a hindrance that sometimes people see and do not necessarily go about it. So it is not an easy journey, and it's a tough one, but I think we continue and we hail on because we're passionate about what we do and what we want to achieve at the end of the day.
Sounds good. Thanks. Now, let me bring in Miriam here. You've heard it from the young people, right? The challenges that they're facing. I thought that perhaps before we can talk about the whole ease of doing business across the region, would tackle the critical issues that are affecting young entrepreneurs and the ability to grow, and how the different policy frameworks are helping them to grow. I mean, I loved what Diane from Rwanda was saying, that and she mentioned a couple of things, including, by the way, paying 50% of certification costs for young people. Now that's enabling, the people in the young entrepreneurs in Rwanda to grow. You've had the challenges. I thought that you would weigh in on how perhaps the existing policy frameworks and how governments can help us young people to actually grow our businesses.
Thank you very much. I think for me the most critical part, which cannot only be played by the government, but rather all of us and the organizations that are capable, is information. I think a lot of youth in business need information before you even develop, before you have a business idea. The most important thing is to know what are the opportunities that are available. If at the national level, for example, the different laws that have been passed, if you look at the Finance Act, there's a lot of opportunities that are given to certain investments, for example, if it's leather or it's agriculture, there's a lot of incentives. But who is communicating that message to youth in business, that these are some of the things that they should focus on when they're developing their business ideas? Or if you look at the regional perspective, we've talked about different trade agreements. Who is translating those opportunities to the young people so that they can generate business ideas based off that? And in the sphere of information is also, now that I've developed a business idea, where do I get finance? If you go, I think most people, as they've ironed out here, a lot of the traditional banks do not prefer lending to startups and more specifically youth, because they are in the risk category. But so how do you know where to go for the right products? Because the right products are there that are they've been designed for the risky groups. They're there, they're few, but how do you get that information that perhaps you shouldn't go to the conventional banks, go to maybe the microfinances? There's a lot of innovations in that sphere that are specific for youth in businesses. And if you also look at the policy, if I may weigh in the regulatory aspect, I think it has also been highlighted here. How is the government facilitating starting up a business? Because you can get the idea, you can get finance, but how is the ease of starting a business? I think we've made a lot of strides in that, but still there's a lot to do in terms of the regulatory authorities that you need to comply in order to sustain your businesses. If you take an example, there's a lot. If you just look at the employment aspect, in order for you to employ someone in your business, there's a lot that you have to comply with, a lot of levies, fees. You have to comply with about 12 regulatory authorities. Each of these authority, you have to pay fees for it. So I think even the structures do not encourage people to formalize. If in order for me to formalize and employ somebody formally, I have to comply with 15 authorities, and in each of these authorities I have to pay fees. And in most cases it's not really complying, but rather the penalty that you get for non-compliance. For example, if you don't have, if this room you're required to have 4 fire extinguishers. If you have 4 fire extinguishers but they've not been maintained, the penalty that you get out of that can even lead to a closure of your business. So I think these are the things that we really need to look at in the regulatory aspect. And more broadly, governments need to look at how they are facilitating in terms of physical infrastructure. For example, a lot of investments, you have everything, but you're just constrained with a small thing like just getting electricity. You're being told to go and buy that electric pole yourself, while it is not your responsibility. The government should have been facilitating that. So it is the small things, and also how are we involving youth in developing these policies. For example, we've had a lot of things, AFCFTA, a lot of things, but how are youth involved? Because the problems that are faced by large businesses and small businesses are very different. Problems faced by women are specific in nature. Problems faced by youth are also specific in nature. So when we're designing policies, to what extent do we involve youth? For example, if you just take an example of access to finance, you can inject money into the banks so that they can lend, but at the end of the day, the banks will not lend to this risky category, because you've not really understood what it requires in order for that money to really reach the intended person. So I think for now, I'll stop there.
Interesting views there. Thanks, Miriam. Round of applause to her. Thanks a lot. Geoffrey, let's talk about, she hinted on it briefly. First of all, the ease of doing business. The World Bank always releases reports every year about the ease of doing business in different countries. And particularly they have released these reports for the East African community. And I remember the last one I checked was that the ease of doing business in, for example, Kenya, Kenya was at 136. Yeah, 136 in that index. And Rwanda was perhaps the closest. The ease of doing business in our region, especially for young people, she hinted about the support that the structures that government is supposed to put in place. But I also thought you'd talk about the bureaucracies, the bureaucratic processes that young people have to go through, first of all, to establish the business, but also to keep it going. I mean, I've given you an example. If you're supposed to, for example, go through the registration process, there's been a lot of corruption along the value chain if you're starting a business. So you've gone to a business office and they have asked you for money. After that, I mean, if you don't have a bribe, your paperwork will stay there for all the time. You move to the next, they tell you, you need to kitu kidogo. Tafadhali, things move. So I thought that you'd talk to us about the bureaucratic processes in government and other hindrances in growing young entrepreneurs in the East African community.
Thank you very much. I think one fact that we must acknowledge generally is that the youth is EAC's future. And that is because they have the stamina, they have the strength, they have the intellect, they have the courage, and you have the capacity. And so, generally speaking, the EAC's future is in your hands, is in this gathering that we see here. But we must also acknowledge that the youth do face significant challenges as they aspire to take advantage of the opportunities that are inherent or are available in the regional protocols and also in our own national policy frameworks. We have significant challenges that we must address. And some of them has already been mentioned. The ease of doing business. How facilitatory are we at the national level to encourage the SMEs, the small cross-border traders, to undertake and pursue businesses of their interests across the sectors, be it transport, be it logistics, be it wholesale, retail, hospitality. How easy is it to pursue that business? And so we have these ease of doing business indicators that are usually published. And when you see the rankings, a country moving from a figure which has been very low to a figure which is greatly improved, is because they are implementing certain measures which makes it far more easier than in the past to conduct business, both for the large-scale traders and business people, but also for the small-scale business people and the cross-border traders. So there are certain measures that have to be adhered to in order to improve our environment to conduct business. And if we fail at the national level to undertake these measures, to ensure that our environment is more conducive and attractive, then of course we remain among the lowest ranking. That is the challenge we have. I cannot tell you the plethora or the variety of those measures, but they are very important to facilitate our business. But among them is the bureaucracies that we face. There are so many measures, so many steps that a business person has to go through, and that can be translated into business costs that they have to incur in order to ensure that their businesses are operational. Now, in the EAC, we have advocated for and encouraged the establishment of what they call one-stop border posts, where any business economic operator can lodge and see all the requirements that are necessary for you to register your business, for you to comply with the tax requirements, for you to make your returns, and so on and so forth. So we have ensured that and encouraged, promoted as much as possible that these one-stop operators, government facilities, are available for any cadre of businesses. But I must say that since we have been talking a lot about the international agreements and specifically the Continental Free Trade Area and how the youth could have been involved, one thing that we must also appreciate is the fact that the EAC is a customs union. And as a customs union, we negotiate agreements communally or collectively. We must negotiate on the basis of a common text. Now, to get that common negotiating text, we have to seek input from the national governments, from the partner states. So the partner states have to contribute to the regional text that we go to negotiate with. And that regional text must be able to serve the interest of all our stakeholders, because after all, those positions are derived from the national governments or our partner states. Now, at the partner states level, we do have these committees that have been established at the ministries of EAC affairs that prepare those national positions. Now, those committees are the membership of those committees are derived from various stakeholders. And that is the entry point for the youth, the SMEs. How can we ensure that they participate in those national forums, the national committees, which develop those negotiating positions in order to ensure that the agreements that we finally sign do reflect the interests of these national stakeholders, specifically the SMEs and the small business people. So that is where, the challenge that we need to address, that this national forum should be as inclusive as possible, and that the voice of the SMEs, the youth, the women, and others must be taken into account and reflected in the agreement that is finally signed and is able to be implemented fully.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Well said. I thought that we could, I could bring you in again, Lillian, perhaps to have more conversations with our regional audience.
Okay, I think just briefly, we would like to, Diana, briefly come through to you. I believe that the Rwanda officials need to leave, and we are literally, Solomon, I think, wrapping up this particular session. Yeah. So maybe if we can just close off for the Rwandan officials, in addition to Tony, if there's any closing thoughts. And we'll take it very briefly to Frank in Burundi, and I'll bring it back to you, Solomon, so that you can close it off for us.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Lillian, and great listening to your panelists right there in Arusha. So to the panelists who are virtually here in Uganda and Rwanda, to Mr. Tony, Jonas, and Madame Diane, please, can you give your closing remarks on things that you think we need to do better regarding facilitating youth-led businesses, as the title of this session suggests. And again, I challenge you to do it in less than a minute so that we don't take everyone's time and we can break off for the next session and the next activity that follows. And I'll start with you all, with you in Uganda, Tony. Just quick closing remarks.
Thank you so much. I'll probably just end by saying, it's worthwhile to know that we have to do whatever it takes to create businesses or enterprises that can do so much in our societies, our countries, and the region as a whole. But what's really key is we need to make these businesses formal. We need to make them compliant. Just like Solomon said, I will ask the question of how many of you have registered your businesses. That is a starting point. So I think it's important for us to take that into consideration and find the best ways to make this happen, for us to grow businesses that can transcend our borders and make them worthwhile businesses. We want to see businesses that can grow in terms of employing more people, having an impact on the economies within our countries and also within the region. All I can say is that at Stanbic, we are part of this story. We want to support as much as we can, and we are here for that. Our value is, or our motto is, it can be. Anything is possible. We want to support you in that journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Over to you, Jonas, very briefly, and then over to you, Diane, in terms of your closing remarks for this session. And great, Jonas, we finally get to see you. So please give us your brief closing remarks.
Good. Thank you so much. I will not go far from Tony's concluding remarks as well. One is that we all know that the informality is still high level. One is that we really need to think of the conducive environment that is going to support registration of businesses, to be able actually to interact with the government, but also involving the entrepreneurs themselves in the process, whether framing a project, framing a program and policies. I think engagement and partnership from both the private sector and the government is very key to a successful journey as we integrate the market, but also support our private sector and government as well. Thank you so much, Diane.
Thank you very much, Jonas. Over to you, Diane. We know how busy your schedules are. Please give us your closing remarks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Diane. Unfortunately, my camera is not on now. But to conclude, what I can say is that both the private sector, government, so we have to join our effort and strengthen the supply capacity of our SMEs, of our entrepreneurs, and really prepare them to take all the advantage we have under the Continental Free Trade Area. And the only way we can be successful is by building the supply capacity of our young entrepreneurs and support them with trainings, with supporting them with financial access to finance so that they really build a very strong supply capacity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you very much, Diane. Thank you very much to Tony and Jonas. I'll now hand over to my co-moderator, all the way in Burundi. Over to you, Frank.
Session. I'm going to give the floor to our panelists to maybe take our message or just something to close the webinar.
Thank you. So a brief message to our young entrepreneurs. Please strengthen your capacity for advocacy, join the youth chamber of commerce, organize yourself, and most importantly, learn English. Because you have to. If you have to export in East Africa, you have to communicate in English. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much for our audience from the country, from East Africa. And now I think we are going to lunch. So we are come back here at 2 p.m. for the next session. Okay, thank you. Enjoy your meal.
All right. A round of applause, everybody. And as Frank has said it, I would like to give a hand of applause to Solomon for swiftly taking us through the Q&As right there. Very data-oriented. And also thank you for all the panelists and contributors on the panel. We would love to welcome you to your lunch, Karibuni Chakula. We will be back in 1 hour so that we can get started with the sessions for the afternoon. So please let us be cognizant of time. Karibuni Chakula. Asante.
That's it. That's what always cuts people.